So we have a ton to cover when it comes to what's going on with Tesla stock. However, before we go ahead and break down the price action for Tesla stock and what are some things that we could be looking forward to, we have to also talk about some of the macroeconomic conditions going on. For example, in the Push and Profit private group, I have mentioned a multitude of different times that the leading economic index has been declining for several months, and this is not a good outlook of what's going on in the economy. And when we look closer to the net contributions to the leading economic index, we see that everything has pretty much been declining with the exception of stock prices. And so if we take a look into the S&P 500 index ETF SPY, we see that we pretty much bottomed out in October and have been rising up very bullishly in the last several months. Of course, we've had some major volatile swings, but if we look at the longer trend, we have been going upwards. Now, what makes this data very interesting is that this is not the first time where we've seen a major divergence between the leading economic indicator and then the S&P 500. For example, if we go back to looking at the Great Financial Crisis, we actually see that in the beginning, the leading economic indicator was trending downwards for a while, yet for a little bit, stocks were actually trending upwards, going higher. However, eventually in 2008, we see the convergence of both moving into the same direction, both the S&P 500 and the leading economic indicator. Now, the leading economic index is not so much of a crystal ball. However, historically speaking, we always end up seeing that the stock market eventually starts trending in the same direction of the leading economic index, hence the title leading index, right? And so it's a leading indicator, and right now things have been looking very bad. It has been flashing recessionary signals for quite a while. Now, if we take a look at the QQQ, which is a NASDAQ index ETF, we see that just like the S&P 500, it's been trending upwards for the last several months. However, it's been a bit more clearer in the direction with less volatility as opposed to the S&P 500. And this is because the NASDAQ is more tech weighted, and we've seen for the big mega cap companies that are all tech companies have been pretty much skyrocketing in the last several months. But it looks like we may be approaching this area of resistance, and this may just be the turning point of where the hype starts dying out. Now, bringing it back to Tesla, in my last few videos, I've highlighted that we're in this trading range with Tesla where we're not really breaking above $216 per share, but we haven't broken below $152 per share in a while, and it looks like things have been trending upwards. However, when you start looking towards the right of the screen, which is the volume profile, we end up seeing that there's a lot of volume in this area relative to price, which means that there is a battle between the bid and the ask, and that's what makes stocks kind of consolidate and form areas of resistances and supports. And so I mentioned that it's going to be challenging breaking above 216 as long as we're in this area, and not until we break above 216 will we see things skyrocketing. However, one of the things that I mentioned that has been a major concern for the markets and has really increased the volatility for the markets has been the debt ceiling news. Now, the reason why the markets have been very hyper focused on the debt ceiling news is because we are approaching a time period where we are just a few weeks away from the possibility of the United States defaulting on its debt, which, if this ends up happening, could cause a calamitous event and wreak havoc on the overall economy. Now, in previous videos and in the Push and Profit private group, I mentioned that the possibility of this happening is very slim, right? I'm not saying it's off the table. I'm just saying it's very unlikely to happen, and I doubt that politicians are dumb enough to keep fighting and not being able to solve this with coming with a deal soon. However, it's still a possibility. Now, what makes this all very interesting is that if we look at this chart provided by Unusual Whales, we see that a multitude of members of Congress ended up beating the S&P 500 in the year of 2022, which is actually the same year where the S&P 500 had a terrible year where prices capitulated, arguably one of the worst years that the S&P 500 had in a while. Yet, if we take a look at this chart, there have been a copious amounts of members in Congress that did very well for themselves when it comes to trading. So this goes to show you that when it comes to filling up their own pockets, Congress is very good at making sure that the very unlikely is actually possible, right? But when it comes to something that, can impact every single American and can have severe impacts on the economy, well, it looks like they're not really motivated in making sure that the best possible outcome could occur. Now, looking at Tesla stock in isolation, we see that Tesla stock opened up very strongly today. However, just like the S&P 500, just like the overall NASDAQ, Tesla stock did end up tumbling down today, and this is most likely due to the debt ceiling news as well. And so guys, I'm not just talking about the debt ceiling news just because I want to, just because I want to talk about political figures like Kevin McCarthy or Joe Biden or whoever, right? I actually don't want to talk about this, but when it comes to trading and investing, you have to take a holistic approach and look at several different data points. For example, if we just looked at things from just a technical aspect or a fundamental aspect, we may be misled, which is why we have to look at everything that's going on, because, the overall markets are like a complex ecosystem, and what's going on with the debt ceiling is holding a huge amount of weight towards Tesla stock. Now, with that said, my approach for Tesla is going to be very simple and very clear, and I've said this a lot of times on the channel before, but for those of you guys that are not subscribed to the channel, first of all, you should hit that subscribe button. But if you're not subscribed to the channel, I'll go ahead and break down what my plans are for Tesla, both from a long-term perspective and a short-term perspective. So for my long-term portfolio, right, for stocks that I hold in this portfolio, obviously as implied for a long period of time, my goal for Tesla is just waiting for Tesla to actually fall down even further to actually scoop up more shares of Tesla and really just do dollar cost averaging, a very simple and effective proven method that does work for long-term investing. Now, when it comes to my short-term account, my trading account, where I'm looking at things in the short term, this may be the very area where I actually open up some short positions for Tesla. I'm gonna have to wait to see what goes on happening for tomorrow. And again, things can change very rapidly with the debt ceiling news. However, if we don't have really much news coming out from the debt ceiling or anything showing any progress, well, that can mean that the market's gonna keep trending downwards. And the only other thing that will really possibly move the markets going forward is gonna be the job data that's coming out sooner or later on this week. And so with that being said, this may be the opportunity for me to start shorting Tesla in my short-term trading account. Now, I know every time I say I'm shorting Tesla, I end up getting kind of like dislikes on the video. And you guys have to understand that me shorting Tesla in the short term does not change my optimistic view of Tesla in the long term. In fact, shorting Tesla in my short-term trading account is really just hedging with the, Tesla actually falling down in my long-term account. Guys, I'm bullish on Tesla in the long term. It's just I'm going to take advantage of the short-term, fluctuations in price by shorting Tesla in my trading account. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Hopefully you guys understand what the goal and my approach for Tesla is going to be. With that being said, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below about this debt ceiling news. Do you think we're going to get a deal by the end of this week? Or do you think both parties are going to go ahead and just kick the can down the road about this deal and make things worse? You guys let me know in the comment section below. And with that being said, guys, before you go, make sure to watch this next video right over here. And I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care.